Shocking discovery. Retired welders have 80% higher chance of having this condition. If you worked as a welder for more than 10 years of your life, what I'm about to reveal now may explain symptoms you've been ignoring for decades. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with a ringing in your ear that sounds like an electric welding sound that never stops? Have you felt like you have cotton in your ear, even when you're in absolute silence? What if I told you that 80% of retired welders develop a specific hearing condition that conventional medicine rarely diagnoses correctly? Dr. Raymond Carhart, pioneer of modern audiology, was the first to document between 1953 and 1968 this devastating connection between industrial welding and a silent form of hearing loss that doesn't show up in conventional exams. His revolutionary studies with metallurgical workers revealed something that completely changed our understanding of occupational hearing damage. Keep watching, because what you're about to discover may be the explanation for decades of silent suffering. Hearing loss from occupational acoustic trauma in welders isn't just about loud volume. It's a complex neurological condition where decades of simultaneous exposure to the noise of welding machines, the hissing of electrodes, and metallic explosions create a specific pattern of damage to the hair cells of the inner ear. Imagine thousands of tiny microscopic antennas that capture sound vibrations being gradually broken, one by one, so subtly that you don't even notice until 80% of them are already destroyed. Dr. Raymond Carhart, working in partnership with Ford Motor Company in Dearborn, Michigan, conducted the first systematic study on hearing loss in industrial welders. Between 1953 and 1968, he examined more than 2,300 welders who had worked on automotive production lines for periods ranging from 8 to 42 years. The evaluation method developed by Dr. Carhart was revolutionary for its time. He didn't limit himself to conventional audiometric tests, but included specialized assessments of the ability to discriminate specific frequencies that were most affected by the sound spectrum of industrial welding. His precise measurements identified hearing losses in frequencies between 2,000 and 8,000 hertz, exactly the range where welding sounds cause the greatest cellular destruction. Preparation for these tests required specially calibrated audiometric booths and equipment that measured neural responses and microscopic levels of precision. The results that Dr. Carhart discovered in those pioneering studies were absolutely astounding and remain relevant today. In 1957, Dr. Raymond Carhart documented in detail the case of Frank Sullivan, a 54-year-old Irish welder who had worked for 28 consecutive years on the Ford assembly line at River Rouge. Sullivan arrived at Dr. Carhart's audiological clinic presenting a set of symptoms that had developed so gradually that he himself hadn't noticed the progression. Frank reported that he began to notice, around age 45, that he needed to constantly increase the volume of the radio at home. But curiously, he could still hear perfectly when his wife spoke to him face to face. "Doctor, it's the strangest thing. I hear my Margaret perfectly when she's in front of me. But if she calls me from the kitchen while I'm in the living room, it's like she's talking underwater," were his exact words recorded in the clinical files. The most intriguing thing about Sullivan's case was that he developed episodes of ringing that he described as the sound of a welding machine that someone forgot to turn off in my head. These episodes were more intense on weekends, when he was at home, away from the constant noise of the factory. Sullivan's conventional audiometric exams showed moderate hearing loss in high frequencies. But Dr. Carhart's specialized tests revealed something extraordinary. Sullivan had developed a specific pattern of hearing loss in the form of a notch, exactly at the frequencies where welding sounds were most harmful. When was the last time you really paid attention to how you feel when you get home after a day of heavy work? Have you noticed if you need to ask people to repeat things more times than you used to? If you caught yourself turning up the TV volume and your family complained it was too loud, but to you, it seemed normal? Now think with me. Have you ever had that strange sensation that your ears are plugged, even when you know you don't have wax or infection? Have you woken up with a ringing that seems to come from inside your own head? A metallic sound that reminds you of the workshop noise, even when you've been home for hours? If you worked with welding for years, especially in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, when hearing protection regulations were practically non-existent, these signs may be your auditory system trying to communicate that decades of occupational exposure caused specific damage that goes far beyond what appears in a common hearing exam. Here's where the situation becomes truly alarming. Occupational hearing loss in welders doesn't stop progressing when you retire. In fact, it often accelerates, because your brain loses the camouflage of the constant noise from the work environment, and you finally realize the real extent of the damage that had been silently accumulating for decades. Dr. Maria Gonzalez from the University of São Paulo published in 2018 a devastating longitudinal study following retired welders for 15 years after leaving their professional activity. The pattern found was frighteningly consistent. Accelerated hearing deterioration in the first 5 years of retirement, development of severe chronic tinnitus, and progressive social isolation due to increasing communication difficulties. The most dramatic case documented by Dr. Gonzalez was that of Joe Santos, a 62-year-old retired naval welder who had worked for 35 years in the Santos shipyards. Santos sought medical help 3 years after retirement, reporting that silence became unbearable. "Doctor, when I was working, the noise from the workshop bothered me. But now that I'm at home, the ringing inside my head is worse than any machine I ever operated," he described. Over 2 years, Santos developed what Dr. Gonzalez classified as post-occupational silence syndrome. He began to avoid silent environments because the ringing became unbearable, started having difficulties sleeping due to phantom noises, and gradually isolated himself socially because normal conversations became an exhausting effort. The complete audiological evaluation revealed that Santos had lost 85% of his hearing capacity in the critical frequencies for speech comprehension, damage that had been masked by the noisy work environment for decades. If you've gotten this far and recognized your own experience in this description, pay maximum attention now, because what I am going to share may represent the difference between decades of unnecessary suffering and significant recovery of your quality of life. Dr. James Mitchell, specialist in occupational hearing rehabilitation at the University of Michigan, developed between 2015 and 2020 a revolutionary protocol specific for welders with post-occupational hearing loss. Dr. Mitchell documented impressive cases of functional recovery in retired welders who followed an integrated program of specialized hearing therapy, neural reconditioning, and targeted nutritional supplementation. The most extraordinary case was that of Robert Kowalski, a 59-year-old retired Polish welder who had worked for 32 years on heavy metal structures. When I arrived at Dr. Mitchell's office, I could no longer watch television with my family because either the volume was too loud for them or too low for me. I was feeling like a stranger in my own home, Kowalski reported. Dr. Mitchell implemented a highly specific protocol that included tinnitus habituation, therapy sessions twice a week computerized, auditory discrimination exercises adapted specifically for the frequencies most affected by welding, and a nutritional regimen focused on neuroprotective compounds like N-acetylcysteine chelated magnesium and coenzyme Q10 in therapeutic dosages calculated for hair cell regeneration. After 24 weeks of rigorous protocol, Kowalski reported a 68% reduction in tinnitus intensity, 75% improvement in auditory discrimination capacity in environments with background noise, and complete recovery of the ability to participate in normal family conversations. It was like someone had cleaned decades of soot from my ears, were his exact words recorded in Dr. Mitchell's study. The protocol developed by Dr. Mitchell is based on 3 fundamental and progressive pillars. The first pillar consists of neural recalibration through personalized sound therapy. where specific sounds in the most damaged frequencies are presented at therapeutic levels that stimulate neuroplasticity of the auditory cortex. The second pillar integrates auditory processing exercises that retrain the brain to extract useful information even with reduced hearing capacity. The third pillar involves strategic nutritional supplementation that provides the specific nutrients necessary for cellular regeneration and protection against additional oxidative damage. The most revolutionary discovery of this approach is that even decades after occupational exposure has ceased, the auditory system maintains surprising capacity for reorganization and functional recovery when approached with specific and scientifically based protocols. This condition affects much more than just your ability to hear conversations. Occupational hearing loss in welders triggers a cascade of problems that extend to all aspects of social, emotional, and cognitive life. When your brain needs to work in overdrive constantly just to decipher basic sounds, it reduces cognitive resources available for memory, concentration, and processing of complex information. Dr. Sarah Williams, from the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, identified that retired welders with untreated hearing loss frequently develop what she calls chronic compensatory cognitive fatigue. This means your brain is spending excessive mental energy just to process basic auditory information, resulting in premature mental exhaustion, concentration difficulties, and even symptoms that can be confused with age-related cognitive decline. Furthermore, the specific hearing loss caused by welding particularly affects the frequencies necessary for human speech comprehension, creating a situation where you can hear sounds but can't understand words clearly. This leads to progressive social isolation, situational depression, and loss of confidence in social situations. Can you imagine what it would be like to wake up in the morning and not hear that constant ringing that has become your unwanted companion? What would it be like to watch television with your family again, laughing at the same jokes, sharing the same moments? What would it be like to participate in group conversations without feeling lost, excluded, or mentally exhausted? Healthy hearing isn't just about hearing sounds. It's about human connection, social participation, personal confidence, and quality of life. When this function is properly restored, not only does your communication improve, but your entire relationship with the world around you transforms. It's absolutely crucial to understand that hearing rehabilitation protocols for occupational damage require specialized professional monitoring, particularly by professionals who understand the specificities of damage caused by industrial welding. Occupational audiologists, otolaryngologists specialized in occupational medicine, and hearing rehabilitation therapists are the most qualified professionals to implement these approaches safely and effectively. Welders with a history of heavy metal exposure, prolonged use of anti-inflammatory medications, or cardiovascular problems should have even more rigorous medical monitoring, as these conditions can interfere with hearing regeneration capacity. It's also important to recognize that not all cases respond identically to rehabilitation protocols, and some situations may require additional technological interventions, such as specialized hearing aids. The key to success lies in approaching this condition with solid scientific knowledge, realistic expectations, and consistent commitment to the established protocol. Occupational hearing loss is a serious condition that deserves the same respect and attention given to any other work-related injury, and should never be simply accepted as an inevitable consequence of the profession. The pioneering work of Dr. Raymond Carhart with industrial welders established the scientific foundations that still guide our understanding of occupational hearing loss today. His meticulous dedication to research in the formative years of industrial audiology created a legacy of knowledge that continues to benefit thousands of workers and retirees. Hearing loss in welders represents a perfect example of how occupational exposures can create specific patterns of damage that require specialized treatment approaches. As our understanding of the mechanisms of auditory injury and recovery continues to advance, new therapeutic possibilities continue to emerge, offering real hope for those who dedicated decades of their lives to professions that, unfortunately, exacted a silent toll on their hearing health. The future of occupational hearing rehabilitation will likely include targeted gene therapies for hair cell regeneration, even more advanced neural stimulation technologies, and regenerative medicine protocols that can restore hearing function in ways we're only beginning to imagine today. Your career as a welder built the world around you. The metal structures, buildings, ships, bridges you helped create will remain for decades as testimony to your hard work and dedication. Now, it's time to build your own hearing recovery with the same determination and precision you applied to your craft. If you recognized your own experience in this description, if you felt that sensation of finally someone understands what I went through, I want you to know that you're not alone and that there are proven paths to recovery available. Leave a comment sharing how many years you worked with welding and what symptoms you've noticed, because your experience can help other retired welders recognize that they don't need to accept this condition as inevitable fate. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss the next videos where we'll explore specific hearing recovery protocols for different at-risk professions and real cases of people who managed to reverse decades of occupational damage. The knowledge you just acquired is the first step to transform your retirement from years of silent isolation into decades of connection and quality of life. Remember, you dedicated decades of your life building durable and important things. Now it's time to apply that same dedication and precision to rebuilding your hearing health. You deserve to hear clearly every precious moment of your retirement.